是我们旧金山湾区的第4大城市。今天来的嘉宾啊，是这个城市60年来第一位华人，也是第一位女性市长。今天要挑战的第一个问题就是呢，前段时间啊，她宣布支持民主党的候选人前纽约市长 Michael Bloomberg。大家也知道，3月3号 Super Tuesday 马上就来了。那么在这个时间点，还有在这个时候，作为一个市长来宣布支持他，到底用意在哪里呢？我们来 welcome。
谢谢，很高兴今天有这个机会跟你们的 audience 有这个交往。我是高旭佳，我是佛利蒙的市长。我先道歉说我的中文讲的比较不流利，因为我是 ABC， 但是我还是觉得是很重要有这个机会跟大家交往。
好。
Your Chinese is perfect, actually.
Much better than my English.
谢谢。
So, Lily, recently you formally announced your endorsement of Mayor Bloomberg. Can you please tell us why you endorsed him versus the rest of the moderates candidates?
Well, I think,我考虑上说要支持哪一位，我有看见到说他自己也是一个以前一个 mayor，我觉得这是很重要，因为这个观念，尤其在 the national federal level 很重要，因为他们有时候会感觉上说 when you come up with policies, you try to implement it, but you don't realize what the impact is locally. And someone like a mayor, like Mayor Bloomberg, is a good balance because he's been both local in terms of understanding the infrastructure, education, healthcare, and needs of a diverse community. And New York City is a huge city. It's one of the biggest cities in the United States. And so he also understands the scalability. The other issues that I recognize with him that I think are so important is that he has great integrity, he has honesty and leadership. He's been honest enough, and I know that some people have asked about some of the challenges he's faced in the past, but he's willing to address them. And when I look at how we work as a nation right now, I feel that things are very polarized. People are polarized into one camp or another, and sometimes are not able to get things done because they're so staunch in their decision making that they can't be flexible. They can't understand the need to work and move together. And that's what I think is most important about someone like Mayor Bloomberg, is someone who gets things done.
我想问一下啊，这个时间点也马上就到了。其实那个邮寄选票已经1个月之前已经寄出去了，你等了蛮久才做这个 endorsement decision 的。你这样的一个 ，What's the process? Did they all talk to you? Did they reach out to you? And how do you decide upon Mike Bloomberg after you talk to other candidates?
Sure. So. I also sit in a couple of different roles. I'm currently on the presidential task force for the National League of Cities, and we help come up with a platform called Leading Together. And so that's one of the things that's very important for us to look at. How do we as municipalities focus on key issues that are critical for the city's maintenance, whether it's on homelessness or public infrastructure? Those are some of the things that we put together. And then we invited the different candidates to come talk to us about that. Unfortunately, during that time period, most of them could not make it to the conference, but different people have signed up. Mayor Pete has signed up, Klobuchar has signed up, and then Mayor Bloomberg has also committed to signing up and supporting Leading Together. And that's important to me because I'm one of the 23 people that helped craft that. In addition, there's also the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which represents the mayors of large cities throughout the United States. I'm also on the advisory council. And when I talk to so many of my fellow mayors, I think one of the things that's really important is that whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, how can we look at perspectives and focus on the common issues that we need to get done every day? And when I looked at the different candidates and I heard from Mayor Bloomberg, that was what resonated with me as to why I endorsed him.
Do you know him personally?
Personally, not very well, no. So I don't think it's something that I've had a long-term relationship, but I think I've followed his record and his performance, and I think that's important. He's somebody who's innovative, who's concerned about the climate, who's concerned about women's rights, and so those are things that I'm hoping to focus on.
那个 Bernie Sanders 现在在加州是领先的，就是说在那个 polling 的话是领先。
Yes.
那他们的团队有没有talk to you and present their case?
Yes,
for
when I
your
was actually
endorsement?
out in D.C. for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, he was supposed to have a briefing with us, but as you know, when I was out there was also the impeachment trials.
I see.
And so therefore, a lot of the candidates did not get to make it to the meeting.
So right now you're on the Bloomberg team. Do you have a title? Are you?
No,
okay.
I've just endorsed him personally. I'm also currently the national president for APAMO, which is the Pacific American Municipal Elected Officials. But I'm endorsing him on a personal capacity.
I see. Now, did you watch the debate that in which actually Bloomberg was basically slaughtered by and seriously challenged by the rest of the candidates.
I think that sometimes, it's interesting. I myself have been through this experience as someone coming in sometimes from the outside and not as official like pipeline of a politician. And I know it's hard sometimes, especially as the outsider coming in. You may have the experience and ability to do the work, but until you're sometimes in the role, you don't have that same comfort level. So for myself coming in as a school board member on the city council and as a city council going on to mayor, unless you're actually in the role, sometimes you're not given the same perspective or insight. But once you're in the role, I think your experiences that you've had in the past really drive and help you in terms of your critical skills that are necessary for your success in the future.
大家都知道，其实除了 Michael Bloomberg， 还有其他很多的候选人。
对，
您刚才讲到说，第一个就是因为他是一个 mayor， 我们知道这里面还有其他的一个 mayor， 是 Mayor Buttigieg， 是 Charles 最初比较看好的黑马之一。您对他怎么看
？I think that Mayor Pete is someone who's excellent, who's approachable, who's got great knowledge, and I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him when I went to the Harvard Institute of Politics for training for new mayors. I think one of the challenges is that he's still relatively newer in terms of his experience, and also for a smaller city, it's a little bit of a challenge. I think there are some other also polarizing possibilities when it comes to some of the public's perspectives, and it would be a little bit of a challenge. I think he's run a fabulous race. I'm hoping that whoever, and you talk about so many candidates, the thing that concerns me right now is that they're beating each other up. And so when you look at the next step, whoever's the runoff in, if they've spent all their time beating each other up, they're not really going to be prepared to address how they would then challenge someone like President Trump right now, or to be able to address those concerns because they've spent each time ripping each other apart rather than being able to focus and say, okay, when this is all over, are we going to step back and say the vote was made, the people have spoken, and now we're going to come together and back that person? And so I'm curious to see what happens, and I'm somebody who will be considering that because I think it's important that you're able to look at what the process works and how do we support it.
Mayor Lily, Bloomberg has vast amount of wealth, as we know, and he's able to use his personal money to get his message out. And do you think that's kind of unfair to the rest of the candidates?
Well, as somebody who's in an unusual situation in the past, I've run my races and have, in some of the past ones, been outspent 10-1. And so I know that it can be very much a challenge, but I think that I also have great faith. And that's why it's so important for us to get our voters out to register and vote and to be informed. Because in my cases in the past, I've been fortunate enough that while people have spent and thrown tons of money at the election, people are educated enough to want to spend time to understand the true candidates' abilities, their experience, and their record in terms of what they've done and performed in to be able to make their decision. 我觉得这最很重要。经验那个学问。
我有一个问题没有跟大家沟通哈，就是首先是如果这次 Michael Bloomberg 在这次 running 的过程中不是太顺利，您会不会觉得说，哎呦，我这个 endorsement 会不会有一点点后悔？另外一个问题就是想知道，如果这个 Trump 在这次 running 的过程中，如果他是会赢的话，那这个 Michael Bloomberg 在这个过程中他会是一个什么样的一个感受？一个位置。
Well, I can't speak for Michael Bloomberg. I can only speak for myself. And I think that I'm hoping that he does very well, and that's my goal. And that's why I'm here today. But in terms of if he doesn't do well, I will have to reconsider in terms of how would I support whoever the future candidate is. But I don't think that makes me regret my decision because I think that it was thoughtful. It was something that I believed in, and so it's something that I stand by.
很多人都有很多的预测，我们在节目里面也都有各种的预测，包括Charles 也是我们节目的预测，对。所以您会不会有一个什么样的预测呢
？When you mean 预测 I'm sorry.
Prediction.
Yeah.
Oh, prediction.
Eventual nominee. Just what do you think? Who do you think is going to win the nomination?
I think based off of the current polling, it looks like Sanders is going to be one of the finalists, but it's very hard to say. I think that we have a very finicky community as a whole right now nationally. People would have thought Biden would have been one of those. And I think he's done okay on his debates, but yet the people don't seem to resonate. And what we're looking at right now is a very unpredictable population. We have a lot of youth that are out there for the first time, millennials. We also have different ethnic groups. And that's why I think that it's so important for 我们的华裔 to get involved and to get engaged. Because traditionally, some of the candidates do not come out to us because they don't feel like we have a voice and we don't say anything.
I have
就
a
是我们一
question.
直说的一个话题。对，
如果 Michael Bloomberg 在加州拿到任何的 delegate, are you going to be one of those national delegates for Mr. Bloomberg?
I don't know. I haven't been
You don't know?
asked. I haven't been approached about
Okay.
that. I think that those are, I'm not
Anyway,
been asked to be a delegate.
because this year it appears to be a broker or a split convention.
Yes, it will
where
be, yes.
you might be, as a national delegate on the floor, you might be applying some of your wisdoms and experiences during that scenario. So, are you considering becoming a national delegate? Have you conveyed this to the campaign
Well,
about
at
that?
this point, I think it's something that would be premature.
Okay.
I would have to say how things run. I also have to be in full disclosure that when I ran my first 4 races, I've run as an independent.
Right.
And I last year became a Democrat. And so I think that that's something that would also be consideration because I don't have the long tenure there. But the reason why I became a Democrat, I think, is very important when I look at some of the local policies and when I'm at the National League of Cities or U.S. Conference of Mayors, when I'm in Sacramento. I've discovered that oftentimes we break into our party's discussions to talk about legislative policies. And if you don't join a party, you aren't going to be able to have the ability to shape and shift and to have the discussion and input that's necessary for us to create the best policies. And in some ways, I'm more fiscally conservative. I'm socially more moderate. I think that having those different perspectives and lens is really important because I think, especially when I think about why I chose someone like Bloomberg, is I think that when you look at the extreme left or the extreme right, I think most people, and this is my prediction, fall into the central, into being a centrist and a moderate in terms of having a balance of what you need. Because I recognize that we need to protect people's rights, but I also recognize the need for businesses to be able to thrive, that we don't operate in isolation. Having been a controller formerly in my work life, I realized that I used to talk to the sales guys, if we don't sell, nobody has a job. But if I don't make a profit and have a margin, nobody has a job.
In that case, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
Which policy that's supported by, say, Bernie Sanders that you find problematic, that you cannot support?
I think that there's a lot of these discussions, and I will just go in general. When you look at some of the dollar amounts that are associated to his programs, I don't see a clear path other than just taxing people and the targeting. I find it frustrating at times, and frankly, as my family has a business and we have a law firm.
Sure.
And when you look at that people would say that if somebody's successful, they're the bane of all evil, that there's a balance for that. Because at the same time, if you didn't have some of that success, you wouldn't have the funding, the taxes and other things for the social services that we're talking about. So on one hand, if you vilify that, you are trying to stop the business from happening or put all the burden. I can give a perfect example. I was up in Sacramento last year, and we're talking about taxes and the ability to self-tax. And I was actually at a Senate hearing, and they were asking me, why do you want to be able to raise the taxes? The Republican gentleman who was on the hearing committee asked me, he goes, why do you want to do that? And you've got Tesla, you don't need anything else. I said, well, Tesla's one company, and I have 250,000 people. I love the idea that we've got successful companies, but one company alone can't bear the burden for the whole community. And I'm not asking you to tax us. I'm asking you for the right for we to make our own vote to judge what's needed in our community, be it for public safety, be it for roads or infrastructure. We're asking only for the flexibility to have self-determination to decide what's necessary and important for our community. And because of that, I had a unanimous vote from the Senate hearing.
So who do you want to debate with Donald Trump on the final stage?
Yes.
I guess Charles said Bernie Sanders, right? Was that your choice?
Well, earlier I predicted 2 dark horses. One is Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and the other one's Andrew Yang, and he's already dropped out. So I'm going to stick with Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, okay. Michael Bloomberg, right?
Yes, I would like to.
I have a question. I just noticed this wiki website. There's a list of these Bloomberg's endorsement, and there's a bunch of mayors. And
Yes.
These are from California, and I couldn't find your name in it.
Yet.
It
Why is
hasn't been
that?
updated yet. I apologize, but
Yet, yeah.
I know it was actually in Politico. There was a
Okay.
press release that went out when I did the
So
endorsement.
somebody actually do the work, have to do the work for you to put your name on there?
Yes, I believe so, but
Right.
I can't speak for their campaign. And maybe it's hopefully a good sign that there's so many people that are being added that they haven't had the time to update all of it.
Did you make some commercials for that? Because I heard a lot of other people's commercial.
No, I have
From
not
the-
made any commercials. I have not made commercials for any candidate.
Well, since we're looking
think
at
that we're
London
focusing-
Bree,
Sure.
Mayor of San Francisco, I think one of the things that that she's in the news about is that she recently declared a healthcare
Yes,
emergency about
yes.
coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sure as mayor of the fourth biggest city in Bay Area, you have been asked about that.
Yes, and certainly as one of the cities that has the majority minority, Asian majority in our city, I just actually got off a call earlier today with the API caucus for the state of California, and we had some slides that came out, and we wanted the public to be informed that as of this moment, there is no cases of the coronavirus in Alameda County. And then also, one of the reasons why Mayor Breed made a statement versus myself is that when these statements are being made, it's made from the county. And so Mayor Breed in San Francisco is a little bit different than Alameda and ourselves. I'm part of Alameda County. San Francisco is a little unique as one of the largest cities in the United States because they are both a city and a county.
Oh, okay.
So they have a different dual role.
That's good.
And so therefore, when it comes to us, when I was in DC, I was able to reach out to our Alameda County Public Health in partnership with our fire department and our police and have statements that were issued. We had fact sheets that came out in Chinese and English. And then also today, we had some recently updated sheets of information just talking about common sense and about how do we prepare. It's much like any other natural disaster or any other flu type of situations. We're talking about how what are the safest masks? I've had people stop and ask me, what type of masks do you use? Do you use the simple mask or do you use the N95?
Oh,
Well,
next time you can tell them to watch Open Mic. We had a
Yes,
show
okay.
about that.
I am not an expert in that,
no, you say
but
that.
I will defer to that. But
Yes.
what I've heard in general is when you have a mask and when you're traveling, to use common sense, to wash your hands more frequently, to not touch your mucous membranes, such as your mouth, your nose, which is why they have the masks. And that one thing, even a simple mask, it deters you from doing so. But then also, I was talking to my brother who happens to be a physician, saying that, when they're seeing patients, they recommend them wearing goggles too, or glasses, because that also blocks, because your eyes are very much mucous membranes.
I see.
But I am not an expert in that, so I would take the defer from either CDC, Alameda County Public Health, or these types of tips and information sheet. And they have assured us that as we're working together as fellow API mayors, as fellow community leaders, we want everyone to be calm and to be informed. The other thing that is important is to get it from a certified source, such as this. Because I will tell you that I have unfortunately seen some fake videos and fake news come
too
out
many information.
on WeChat, on YouTube, on other media, social media, that causes mass hysteria unnecessarily. And so I want to make sure that people are informed properly.
I don't think there is a case confirmed in San Francisco either, but the mayor there have chosen to make this declaration. So are you saying that's perhaps too early, or is that?
I cannot speak for San Francisco. The three largest counties in California, I think three of the largest, at least in the Bay Area, are San Francisco, Santa Clara, and probably Alameda in terms of Asian populations. But ours would then defer to Alameda County. I do not
I
have
see.
the ability on my own to declare a state of
So if
emergency.
something like that should happen, will be either the county executive or the county health department that's
Yes,
going to
there's
make
the
that?
county public health, and then the other people that I reach out to are Alameda County supervisors. And that's really important because the Alameda County public health officials, as well as the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, they are the ones that are responsible for a lot of these health and wellness services, the public safety, and these resources that are available for welfare. So the Alameda County Public Health Department works with the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. And currently, that's why also for Super Tuesday, it's very important. In Fremont, we're in an unusual situation where we're having the first election in 24 years for that seat. There is no term limits, and that's why I encourage people to really get out and
When you say
read.
there's no elections, means there's no contested elections.
There's no contested. There have
Right,
been
right.
elections,
There
but
have
they've
been
basically
elections.
been unopposed
Right.
for
right.
24 years. So I
He
think
was the only candidate.
Yes.
The current supervisor.
Yeah.
You could have had a write-in, I guess somebody could have written in.
Right.
But needless to say, this time around, there are 4 candidates. And as I am the mayor of the largest city in that supervisorial district, I thought it was important that I meet and talk to each of the 4 candidates. 我觉得每个的那个观念很重要。And so, 我跟他们访问说他们的学问、他们的经验。And in the end, 我跟那个 San Jose Mercury News and Livermore Independent endorsed the same person, and that's supervisor, and that's Vinnie Bacon.
It's like an interview.
他也是一个 Fremont 的一个市议员，对不对？
He is.
所以他有跟你合作的一起工作的经验。
Yeah, 对，这个也是很重要，有这个经验。Because, you know, 这个 budget is $3 billion, and Fremont traditionally has been a big piece of the tax contribution. If you look at the 10 biggest metro economies in the United States, some of the biggest ones, Fremont sits in 2. We sit in the metro economy of San Jose, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, and we also sit in the one for San Francisco, Oakland, and Hayward. But you don't hear Fremont in any name, right? And that's sometimes very frustrating. Fremont is the home to 900 manufacturers, and we are one of the biggest revenue-generating sources. When we're home to someone like Tesla, which is the largest manufacturing outside of west of the Mississippi for a plant. And then we also are home to Facebook's brand new campus. So we have 1 thumb up in Menlo Park and 2 thumbs up in Fremont.
Thank you for tie-in from Menlo Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought I'd give that to you.
Thank you.
You know, Mayor Lily, let me put you on the spot as well, because you just mentioned Vinnie Bacon, right?
Yes.
So Vinnie Bacon's campaign slogan is that he's a clean money candidate. So compare as opposed to, you know, if you look at Mayor Bloomberg, he is the big money candidate. So you would support, you supported both the big money candidate and the clean money
I think what she meant is that is the experience that counts, right?
So,
Yes.
so explain to me
Sure.
why you also endorse
Well, I
Vinnie
think that,
Bacon.
you know, Vinnie Bacon, for locally, what we're seeing is sometimes when it comes to making these decisions, and that's something that I personally experienced, is that to be able to have independent thought and to have somebody who can listen to both sides and understand the needs, and to not feel that you have to be tied into one group's, you know, loyalty, I guess, because you feel like there's, you know, especially I find it to be a conflict of interest right before a vote, to be given large sums of money, even if it's through an independent expenditure, because that's a great way to just say, oh, you know, we're going to give large sums of money.
Are you saying another candidate in particular when you say that?
I will say that if you look at the records of
I
all
see.
the other candidates, that it's something that you should
might
look
have
at
happened?
and have,
Okay.
have analyzed. And I myself have experienced it, as I mentioned, when I ran for council, as when I ran for mayor, that some people were able to outspend me 10-1, even though our city's limit is at $560 is very low limit. But the fact that you have some of these big expenditures coming into play, it makes it a little more beholden. Chinese people would say 拿了钱手缩短. You can become like a
拿人钱手短.
Yes, kind of like a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay.
You wanna-
吃人嘴短，拿人手
I
短。
guess you hopefully have your bites still, but
I got
otherwise
it.
your hands are kind of limited as to how
Right.
much you can slap somebody.
Right. So that election is going to be a primary. There's going to be a tuition. So there's going to be could be another election.
Oh yes,
in,
yes.
in
Likely
November
it will be. Likely
or
there'll be a
after.
runoff.
Right.
Because when you look at the 4 candidates, you have one who's a sitting state senator, one who was the largest voting for the council member for Fremont, Vinnie Bacon, the largest amount of votes for Dublin as the mayor,
Yeah.
and then one
In
of
that-
the vice mayors.
Why don't you go through all of the candidates? Let her finish.
Oh, sure.
sorry.
So the senator is Bob Wajkowski. There is also Vice Mayor Melissa Hernandez, and then the mayor of Dublin. They're both from Dublin,
Yeah.
David Halbert.
So can you talk about, you know, the general strength and relatively areas of improvement for these candidates?
I don't know if I want to
if you
critique
wanna-
each of them.
talk
You know,
Because I was
let's
gonna
move on
say-
a separate race, which
Yeah.
is the assembly race, which is also an open seat.
Yes.
In the southern part of Fremont. Have you made an endorsement in that race?
I have not. I'm curious to see who makes the runoff, and then
I
I will
see.
make it after that time. I think there are so many people, and certainly that's for Zhugan the weights, right? For
Right,
Kansan-Chu for
right.
Assembly
Yeah.
District 25.
Santa Clara County.
And that's important. One of the things that Fremont's challenged by, and I really think we need to look at it when it comes to the census and redistricting, is we have 2 of everything. It seems like we have almost 2 of everything.
Get split.
2 assembly members, 2 Congress members,
Right.
and 1 state senator. But having that voice, if both are listening to you, that's great. But if you're part of everyone and you're not getting anyone's voice, that's where it's important for me. And some people will say to me sometimes as the mayor, you follow all of our votes and you drive us crazy because you call us all the time about these votes. But I go, they go, do your job. And I said, I am doing my job. I'm making sure you're doing yours for my community. And that's what's important.
That's a great answer.
For the state assembly race, though, I mean, I remember having one Republican there, so it's most likely whichever the Democrats who make the primary would most likely, I mean, there might still be contests, but most likely to win the November election. So a endorsement in the primary, wouldn't you think is quite important in that race to find out which one might be the representative?
I think this is going to be a very interesting one. There are some people with long tenure, but they don't have the same experience. That's why I'm very curious to see, and I'll be honest, I think I do need to come to the final 2. I did meet the candidates, all of them, and it's something that I've had the pleasure of knowing them through other lenses. And so I'm curious to see, with the assembly seat, as you're creating legislative policies, how do you bring the experience that you've had in the past and make it relevant? And I jokingly say all the time that when people go up to Sacramento, I hope they don't drink the Kool-Aid and forget what it's like to be a local person, because it's easy. I think you get a little separated. The one thing about being a mayor, and that's why I love being the mayor, good and bad at times, is that they know how to reach out and touch you. Because you're local. Nothing gets more local to people. I mean, nothing gets more important to some people than local politics. That's why I started off in the school board, because I was a parent of 2 kids. My 2 best MIF, Made in Fremont products, are my children. And so that's what I think our strength of our city is. Fremont has the most startups per capita than any other city in the United States, and we also are one of the best in terms of innovation. I like to use the tagline that great things get started in Fremont, because when you look at, like, example this week, there was an opportunity where we launched an autonomous taxi vehicle option for some of our city staff coming from the ACE Amtrak train station to the city office in a pilot, and it's with a company called Pony AI. And I love the fact that we, as a city, traditionally always try to use and have the opportunity to partner with great local businesses and help them prove a concept that we are also focusing on. We are a green city. And how green are we? You know, we have the most EV chargers of any city. We have the most EV drivers. And not just for Tesla. We also have that when they opened the Nissan Leaf. They told me that we were like the #1 in terms of the consumption. And you know, why our people are so excited and so dynamic? I jokingly say to people all the time that not only is the city of Fremont supercharged like our vehicles, we also drink the most coffee of any city, so our people are also supercharged. That's why we're so energetic. Yes. And the mayor is probably in line for that too.
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah,
So Mayor Lily, you've been talking about other elections and other people's races. Can you talk a little bit about your own plans for a future re-election?
Sure. So I think that that's important to note. I've been so privileged. I've lived in Fremont for 26 years now, and that I've had a chance to serve 2 terms, 1.5 terms as a school board member. I was the state president for APIs for California. I've been a council member and then as a mayor, and now I'm standing for my 5th election as running for re-election for mayor. I think it's really important to have that experience. Each of those have taught me a little bit more about my community, whether it's each of the needs for the education, which some people will say, you know, why is education important? You're now on the city side. You shouldn't have to worry about that. But education is fundamental. If you want to have a good quality community, the quality of life, to have safety in terms of prevention of crime because they're having jobs, because you want to have innovation. And it's also important when I look at the companies that we draw, they come to Fremont. Like I found out recently from Facebook, they told me that of the Silicon Valley employees, why did they choose Fremont other than the great one end to the other end of the bridge and the close commute? Is because the fact that already, when you talk about jobs housing balance, when you talk about the traffic and congestion, they tell me that 30 to 40% of their existing workers already live in Fremont. When it comes to Boehringer Ingelheim, they're spending their $320 million to invest last year in increasing their production by 30%. A lot of their workers, including their president, lives in Fremont. You know, Lime Bike, the founders live in Fremont. Pony AI, the company
You
that I
just
just
mentioned
cited,
it, right.
that
Yeah.
also, in addition to our news this week, they also launched that Toyota has invested $400 million in a partnership with them on the same day.
Congratulations. Yeah.
They are also residents of Fremont. So I think that that's what our best product is. Livermore may have wines, Pleasanton may have the fairgrounds, other people have other traits, but the best thing that comes out of Fremont is the people.
幸福感
Mayor,
幸福感超
excuse
强
me.
啊！
Mayor, can I ask? I heard from street that one time. Now we know you joined the Democrat
Certainly.
Party, right? And I heard that once upon a time, you tried to join one event of Democrat Party, and somebody snubbed you. And how did you take it? And how do you usually handle this very unpleasant situation generally in political life?
Well, unfortunately, when I was in the process of wanting to join the Democrat Party or even to go to the candidate forums when I ran for school board, there have been occasions where I have been alienated. And what's disappointing to me sometimes when I look at it, and that's why I think it's so important that we speak up and share about this, is APIs and Asians want to have someone that represent and elect and serve them. But oftentimes, it's been sad to see sometimes they're the most critical and sometimes oppositional to having someone new come in. One of the things also is to grow any party, be it Republican, Democrat, is to have a welcoming platform. And so when I was faced in those situations, I'm somebody, I jokingly say, I'm not somebody who runs in away. I think that it's important to stand your ground and feel confident in what you're doing and that you're trying to be part of a success and be part of a solution. So I stayed through that situation. I was not petulant. I was not throwing a temper tantrum. I stayed with grace. I stayed with determination that I have earned my right to be heard and that I'm here as your partner to serve and to work together. In my past races, as I mentioned earlier, I've run them as independent, and be it they were Republican or Democrat or have different points of views, I've always felt it's important that after an election's over, I'm not looking out for just what happened to me personally, and you have to be able to set that aside. You have to look at what's best for your community and the people that are in it.
That's
not
great.
just-
I think you just gave us one of the secrets why you won every single race that you were in the past. Some of the races were very, very tough. Can you tell us what else makes you tick? What else, help you win every single election you were in?
Well, I think that I jokingly tell people over the years, I have to be very humble and grateful to say that I had a great start with Fremont PTA, with my school PTA, and that I'm a grassroots person. I have the best friends. I know a lot of people go out and hire political consultants. And I used to say, when politicians come to visit me, I represent you. And I go, how do you represent me? I've never seen you before in my life. And so I went with my own friends. I have a very talented group of mom friends. They were former CTOs, CMOs, CFOs, as well as just business leaders or community leaders. They really care, and they get things done. If you go to the schools and you look at how things are, so many times people go and complain about stuff. I value the people who want to be able to flexible and understand the need for change and get things done. And so if I can't get my own friends to vote for me, nobody's going to vote for me. And so that's
Can
what's
I ask
important.
you a question about
Sure.
AndrewYang? Because your endorsement, the timing, somebody asking why the timing is today? Because yesterday AndrewYang just dropped out. So can you explain why? Did you support AndrewYang before or no?
Well, I think Andrew Yang's camp had tried to come out to me, and they were supposed to meet with me at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, but for one reason or another, they didn't connect with me.
Okay.
And so it hasn't been the case. But I do admire the fact, and I do have to say, I really appreciated his run for office. And here's why. I've told people when I ran, because back then I ran for school board the first time against Wu Wei, not against, with her, because there are 5 candidates and 3 seats. And that we want someone, you shouldn't vote for someone just because they're Chinese. You should not vote for them because they're Chinese. You vote for them because they're the best candidate. And so he's somebody who established himself, at least of having a reputation for being credible, for being consistent, for being someone who would go out there and deliver, even when he wasn't always given the proper or fair amount of airtime in his opinion, that he would then continue to show and demonstrate grace in addressing that issue. And I think that that's something to be applauded. I admire anyone who's willing to put themselves out there in a race because it takes courage. It is so easy to come up to city council, school board, and my housing navigation center or whatever discussions and say, you should have done this way or that way. But you don't have the courage to stand up there and make that vote and stand there afterwards and take the decisions that happen afterwards. Then you shouldn't talk. And that's why I think they all should go out and vote. Because if you didn't make your vote and didn't cast it, then you shouldn't even come and complain at all.
Yeah, I believe you heard that before more than me because you're Chinese, so you have to support Chinese. Yeah.
I think that you should support Chinese if possible because I'd like to see a pipeline. I'm surprised to find out in my city's history of 65 years, I'm the first woman mayor, first Asian mayor, first Chinese mayor. And in fact, for APACs, when I looked at the history in the Women's History Month, for large cities in the United States, I am the third directly elected large city mayor in U.S. history. And so I want to see more. I was shocked to say it, like, oh my gosh.
I'm sure you have met Karen Goh in
Yes.
Bakersfield.
She is now the fourth.
Oh, there
So
we go.
she and I were elected at the same time, but
Right.
because of the swearing in time processes,
All
I was
right.
on a year prior to her.
Yeah.
But I love that we get more. And I want more women and I want more young people from the API community to get engaged, to get involved. Not just for your college applications, your letters of recommendation,
Right.
but for an ongoing basis. You need to say that if I want to see the table change, I have to have a seat at the table, or in the case where I wasn't given a seat at the table, reset the table yourself.
That's great. So, Mayor Lily, do you think that the Bloomberg campaign just reached out to you a lot more than Andrew Yang's campaign beforehand? And
Well, I
that's
think
one of the
that
reasons why you endorsed
Timing
him.
is a question. I also, as I mentioned, I was on the presidential task force for creating the Leading Together. I'm also on the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and they also just put out their platform. And I felt it was important for me to try to be able to put out those platforms independently, non-biased, without being tied to any candidate, and to be able to then come back and say, now, here's what we think as a cohesive group, whether it's the cities or the mayors, and then who will stand up and hopefully support that and have a past demonstrated record of being able to deliver. And also, frankly, if you want to be successful in challenging any incumbent, you need to have somebody who is at least approachable or palatable to those other people's perspectives to get a balance. Because otherwise, if you're just going to have the pendulum swing left and the pendulum swing right, you're going to have all the people in the middle wondering, who's serving me?
Right.
Mayor,
Lily
can I
Mei.
ask, do you think there's a discrimination against either women or Asian? Because you are both, right?
Sure.
And especially in California, this liberal, deep blue state, in the California political circle. And what is your opinion on identity politics?
Well, I think that there still is some challenge. When I ran the first time for school board member, a lot of Chinese people, I was surprised later on, came up to me and said, we didn't vote for you because we thought that you might knock out the other Chinese person. And then even when I went to my first candidate forum, somebody endorsed a minority of a different ethnic group than myself because they said, you already have a seat at the table. And I'm a little direct. I told them I didn't know I lived in a crayon box and we only had one yellow. But it's not just from other people's perspective. Within the Chinese community itself, sometimes, I won't say the publication, but one of my first votes I made as a school board member that I made differently than my fellow Chinese school board member, Wu Wei, at that time, I got a call from a newspaper and they go, do you know you voted differently than her? And I was like, I hope so. I pressed the button. And they go, you voted differently. Why? I said, I didn't know all Chinese people share one brain. I would like to think that, I am an independent person. Each of us, being Chinese women, even if we have had some similarities in where we live or raise our children, each of our unique independent backgrounds. I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Philadelphia. I've had different experiences, but each of those lead to a different perspective. And that's why it's important when you look at not just my race as mayor or as council, but all races, that you have different people who balance the perspectives that are needed there. When I came on as mayor, some people were surprised. I appointed someone onto council who had actually backed my opponent. And somebody said, are you going to only pick people who have the exact same mind as you? And I said, they never asked the gentleman who they picked. Nobody ever asked them. The reporters never asked them. They only asked me. And I said, no, I'm looking for the long list of people who hate my guts. That's who I'm looking for. It seems very weird that people would ask that. People also asked me when I came on as the mayor, I was the only woman at that time with 4 men. They said, what happens now? You're the only woman. What if the 4 guys don't want to listen to you? And I was kind of shocked to have that question. And I said, well, everybody has a mother, a daughter, a sister, a wife, and no offense to my husband or son who may be watching, but sometimes you don't get a choice, and I guess it'll be the same. I would think that everybody wants to consider each of our 5 members' opinions. Not saying that you have to be with me because I'm the mayor, but each of us have equal weight because we were selected by our communities to represent that person's perspective and voice. And I hope, if I'm so pleased and so fortunate and humbly able to be chosen again to serve my community, that I would be able to stand and be able to represent them through another period of term.
Okay, so Mayor Lily, I heard that in Hawaii, 75% of the Japanese Americans, they will vote for a Japanese American candidate, regardless of party affiliation, whether it is Republican candidates or whoever. If it's Japanese American, all of the 75% of them will vote for them. How do you think that can apply to the Chinese Americans here in our election here locally?
I don't think that that's the case. I mean, I don't think people are blinded by simply a racial designation, a religious designation, an ethnic designation. I truly have faith in Fremont and our residents, as well as the voters as a whole, for all those other cities that are out there watching this show, that we have people who really care, and they're educated and want to be informed, and that they should watch the candidates' debates. They should look at the past voting records. They should analyze how their relationships, because even for the supervisor, for any of these races, be it myself as the mayor, you need to see how they work, not just on their own merit, because that's one piece, but we are part of a team. And so together, everyone achieves more. And if you cannot broker and understand how you can work with another member and to get things done, everybody knows when you look at the supervisor race, when you look at the council race, when you look at Senate, or any of those, you need to have the majority votes to win. So that doesn't become a race about me. It becomes a race about we. How are we going to make things happen? And how are we going to get things done?
Sure.
That's really excellent. You know, there is some kind of relationship between what's going on with the coronavirus and many, many events. Many festivities are being canceled and affecting a lot of large gatherings and planned events. And do you think that, when do you think you're going to launch your re-election campaign? And knowing that a lot of Chinese Americans are probably going to be hesitant to attend any of the big events now, given that right now it's the outbreak seems to be
Don't spread
happening.
false rumors.
Well, this is a good start. I am running for re-election for mayor for 2020. So this is the first place. Thank you for asking me.
Oh,
This is my first chance to be able to share with all of you how I am so humbled to have earned your support in the past, and that if I would be so grateful to continue that service. I want people to know, sometimes people think that being a mayor or being a council member is all about the money. The first 6 years that I served on school board, I actually took no salary. I donated my entire statement back to the school district because we agreed that the schools needed the money. I have taken the funding for city council as well as mayor because I make a whopping $45,000 a year as the mayor of Fremont. There are other stipends that come in for other committees that I serve on, but it pales in comparison to the sheer number of hours that I work. And we had this discussion about minimum wage, and for the hours that I put in, I'm pretty sure I make less than minimum wage.
You know, since you bring this issue up, the mayors of San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland, they are all professional. They have a good salary, and they have a paid staff for the cities.
Yes.
Whereas Fremont, you have technically volunteer city council members who will pay a stipend for the time.
Well, we're not considered volunteer. We're considered part-time.
Right.
But I think that it is something that's very interesting that you should have that discussion. It's something that we will have to look at. We went from being at-large 5 council members to now 7 and going to district elections. We are the largest city in California that is a general law city. The other cities that you referenced that are big cities are charter cities, and so they have a directly elected and a strong mayor versus I'm not weak as a person, but the form of government that our city operates on is the city manager led.
I think it's done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this chance. 谢谢大家。
谢谢
谢谢。希望下次有机会再欢迎。